The wedding cake was still in our freezer when my mother-in-law told me she was dying. We'd been married for 11 days. 11 perfect days of that honeymoon glow where everything feels possible and the future stretches out bright and endless. We were still opening wedding gifts, still writing thank you cards in our tiny apartment, still giddy with the newness of being husband and wife. Then the phone rang at 7:43 on a Tuesday morning. "Jessica, honey, is Marcus there?" Patricia's voice was strange, thin, wavering in a way I'd never heard before. "He's in the shower. Is everything okay?" A pause, a breath that sounded like it hurt coming out. "No, no, everything is not okay. I need to talk to both of you. Can you come over today?" My stomach dropped like I was on a roller coaster. "Patricia, what's wrong? Are you all right? Should I call 911?" "No, no, nothing like that. Just come over, please, both of you, as soon as you can." She hung up before I could ask anything else, leaving me standing in our tiny kitchen holding the phone, my heart hammering against my ribs. Marcus emerged from the bathroom in a towel, water still dripping from his dark hair. He saw my face and his smile vanished. "What happened? Who was that?" "Your mom. She sounded wrong, really wrong. She wants us to come over right away." "Wrong how?" "Scared? Upset? She wouldn't tell me what was going on, just said we needed to come over." We threw on clothes without discussion, moving with the urgent efficiency of people who know something terrible is coming but don't yet know its shape. I grabbed my purse. Marcus grabbed his keys. We were in the car within 5 minutes. The 15-minute drive to Patricia's house felt like an hour. My mind spun through possibilities like a wheel of misfortune. Heart attack? Stroke? An accident? Had someone happened to someone else in the family? Was it financial trouble? Legal trouble? Nothing in my imagination prepared me for what she actually said. Patricia lived in a beautiful colonial-style house in the suburbs, the kind of place that looked like it belonged on a Christmas card. White siding, black shutters, perfectly manicured lawn. Marcus had grown up in this house. His father had died of a sudden heart attack when Marcus was 16, and Patricia had raised him alone from that point on. She was waiting at the door before we even knocked, as if she'd been watching for our car. She looked terrible, eyes red and swollen from crying, face pale, hands shaking. Come in," she said, ushering us inside with a nervous energy that set my teeth on edge. She led us to the living room, the formal one with the white couches that no one was allowed to sit on without permission, the one reserved for important guests and serious conversations. We sat. She stood, pacing for a moment before finally sitting across from us. "I went to the doctor last week," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'd been having some pain, some symptoms I'd been ignoring for months, telling myself it was nothing, just getting older, but it kept getting worse, so I finally made an appointment." Marcus reached for my hand instinctively. I could feel his palm already sweating. They ran tests, a lot of tests. Blood work, scans, biopsies. I had to go back 3 times. And yesterday, her voice broke. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. "Yesterday, I got the results." The silence stretched like taffy. I wanted to reach across and shake the words out of her, but I also wanted time to stop so I'd never have to hear what came next. "I have cancer," she finally said, the words falling like stones into still water. "Stage 4, pancreatic cancer." The room seemed to tilt. I heard Marcus make a sound, not quite a word, not quite a gasp, somewhere in between. "Stage 4? His voice was strangled, barely recognizable. "But that means—" "It's spread," Patricia said, nodding as fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. "It's spread to the liver, lungs, and lymph nodes. The doctor said—" She pressed her hands to her face. "He said I have maybe 6 months to a year, maybe longer if the treatment works, but probably not. Pancreatic cancer is— it's one of the worst kinds. By the time you have symptoms, it's usually too late. No, Marcus stood up abruptly, then sat back down like his legs wouldn't hold him. No, that can't be right. You're only 58. You're healthy. You do yoga 3 times a week. You look... I know, she sobbed. I know. That's what I told the doctor, but he showed me the scans. It's there. It's real. I'm dying. I felt like I was watching this scene from outside my body. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not 11 days after our wedding. Not to Patricia, who'd welcomed me into the family with open arms, who'd helped me plan the wedding, who'd told me she was so happy to finally have a daughter. Mom, Marcus moved to sit beside her on the white couch, wrapping his arms around her as she collapsed against him. Mom, no, 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 no. I'm so sorry, she cried into his shoulder. I'm so sorry to do this to you. You just got married. You're supposed to be happy, starting your life together, and now you have to watch me die. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize, I said, finding my voice, even though it came out rough and thick. Don't ever apologize. We're family. We'll get through this together. Whatever you need, whatever it takes, we're here. She lifted her head from Marcus's shoulder and looked at me with those tear-filled brown eyes. You're so sweet, Jessica, so kind. I don't deserve a daughter-in-law like you. Yes, you do. You deserve all the love and support we can give you. If I could go back and talk to that version of myself, the naive, trusting woman sitting in that living room making promises she didn't understand, I don't know what I'd say. Would I tell her to run? To ask more questions? To demand proof before sacrificing everything? Or would I tell her that sometimes the betrayals that hurt most are the ones we never see coming? The days after Patricia's diagnosis blurred together in a haze of doctor's appointments, treatment consultations, and frantic research. I spent hours reading about pancreatic cancer, survival rates, treatment options. The statistics were grim. 5-year survival rate for stage 4 pancreatic cancer, 3%. 3%. Patricia had chosen an aggressive treatment protocol, chemotherapy every 2 weeks at the Metropolitan Cancer Center, a facility about 40 minutes away. It was one of the best cancer centers in the region, known for cutting-edge treatments and compassionate care. I'll take her, I told Marcus without hesitation. You can't miss that much work. You just made senior analyst. They're counting on you. Jessica, you literally just started your new job 3 weeks ago. You can't start taking days off already. Yes, I can. Your mom needs us. She needs me. My boss will understand. Marcus looked at me with such gratitude, such overwhelming love, that my heart ached. I wish I could preserve that moment in amber before I knew the truth, when I still believed I was doing something noble and selfless, when I thought sacrifice meant something. Patricia's first chemotherapy appointment was scheduled for the following Thursday. I took the day off work, telling my new boss that my mother-in-law had just been diagnosed with terminal cancer, and I needed to take her to treatment. Of course, Karen said, her face full of sympathy. Take whatever time you need. Family comes first. I should have noticed the pattern starting even then. Karen's expression, sympathy mixed with something else. Concern? Worry? At the time, I thought she was worried about Patricia. Looking back, I think she was worried about me, about what this would mean for my brand new career. I picked Patricia up at 8 in the morning. She came out wearing a headscarf, even though she hadn't lost any hair yet, a pale blue one that matched her eyes. Just practicing, she said with a weak smile when she saw me looking. The doctor said I'll start losing hair after the 2nd or 3rd treatment. Might as well get used to wearing these now. You look beautiful, I said, and meant it. Patricia was a striking woman, tall, elegant, with high cheekbones and expressive eyes. Even in her fear and illness, she carried herself with a kind of grace. The drive to the cancer center was quiet. Patricia stared out the window at the passing scenery, strip malls, gas stations, suburban neighborhoods blurring by. I tried to think of something comforting to say, but what comfort is there for someone facing their own mortality? Are you scared? I asked finally as we pulled into the parking lot. Terrified, she admitted, her voice barely audible. But I'm a fighter, Jessica. I didn't raise Marcus alone for 20 years by giving up when things got hard. I won't go down without a battle. That's the spirit, and you're not alone. You have us. You have so many people who love you. I know. She reached over and squeezed my hand. You're a blessing. I hope you know that. The Metropolitan Cancer Center was a modern building, all glass and steel, trying to look hopeful and cutting edge, rather than like a place where people came to fight for their lives. We checked in at the front desk. The receptionist was efficient and kind, handing Patricia a clipboard with forms to fill out. After the paperwork was complete, a nurse called Patricia's name. We both stood, but Patricia grabbed my arm gently. Jessica, would you mind waiting out here? The treatment room makes me so anxious. All those machines, the IV stands, the other patients, it's overwhelming. I do better if I can go in alone and just focus on getting through it. Are you sure? I don't mind coming with you. I can hold your hand, keep you company. Please. Her eyes were pleading. I need to do this my way. I need to feel like I have some control over something, even if it's just how I handle the treatments. Okay, of course, whatever you need. I'll be right here in the waiting room. She squeezed my hand once more and followed the nurse through the double doors marked Treatment Center, authorized personnel only. I settled into the waiting room with my laptop, determined to be productive. I had a marketing presentation due next week, and I figured I could work on it while I waited. The waiting room was nice. Comfortable chairs, free coffee, magazines, a TV playing HGTV on low volume. Other people sat scattered around, some working on laptops like me, others reading, a few staring blankly at the TV. 4 hours later, Patricia emerged looking exhausted. Her face was pale, her movements slow and careful. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 4 hours. How do you feel? I asked, rushing to help her to the car. Like death, she said, then laughed bitterly. Ironic, right? The treatment that's supposed to save my life makes me feel like I'm dying. I drove her home slowly, avoiding potholes and taking turns carefully so she wouldn't get more nauseous. When we arrived at her house, I helped her inside, got her settled in bed with a glass of water and some crackers. Thank you, Jessica. Her eyes already closing. I don't know what I'd do without you. You don't have to do without me. I'm here for whatever you need. Marcus is so lucky to have you. I'm lucky to have both of you. I meant it. At the time, I meant every word. That became our routine. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, I'd take off work, pick up Patricia at 8, drive her to the cancer center, wait for 4 hours, then drive her home and make sure she was comfortable before heading back to my own life. Every 2 weeks, she'd ask me to wait in the waiting room instead of coming back to treatment with her. Every 2 weeks, I'd agree, respecting her wishes, her need for privacy and control. Every 2 weeks, I'd watch her come out looking progressively worse, paler, thinner, more exhausted. Around week 6, her hair started falling out. She showed me handfuls of it one day, dark strands tangled in her brush, and wept like her heart was breaking. I'm losing myself, she cried. Piece by piece, I'm disappearing. You're not disappearing, I told her firmly, holding her while she sobbed. You're transforming. You're becoming a warrior. Every strand of hair you lose is a battle scar. You're fighting for your life, and that's the bravest thing a person can do. She pulled back and looked at me with those expressive eyes, now rimmed red from crying. You're the daughter I never had, Jessica. I hope you know that. You're the daughter I always wanted. The words should have made me happy, should have made me feel loved and accepted and part of a family. Instead, they felt like chains wrapping around my chest, squeezing tighter with each passing day. 3 months into Patricia's treatment, my boss called me into her office. My stomach dropped as I followed her, knowing what was coming but hoping I was wrong. Jessica, close the door and have a seat. We need to talk about your attendance. I sat down heavily, my hands already trembling. I know I've been taking a lot of time off. You've missed 23 days in 3 months. That's almost 2 days every week. I understand you have family responsibilities, and I sympathize, I really do. But Jessica, we hired you to be our senior marketing manager. That's a full-time, 40-hour per week position with significant responsibilities. We need someone who can actually be here. I am here, I protested, hearing the desperation in my own voice. I work from the waiting room during her treatments. I answer emails at night and on weekends. I'm staying on top of all my projects. Barely, Karen said, and the word hung in the air like an accusation. You're meeting deadlines, yes, but the quality of work isn't what we expected when we hired you. The campaigns you're producing are adequate, but they're not the innovative, creative work we saw in your portfolio. You seem distracted, exhausted, and honestly, I don't blame you. What you're dealing with is incredibly difficult. So, what are you saying? Karen sighed, looking genuinely uncomfortable. I'm saying that if this continues, if you keep missing this much work, we're going to have to reconsider your position. I don't want to fire you, Jessica. You're talented, and under different circumstances, I think you'd be an incredible asset to this company. But right now, you're not able to give us what we need. I left her office feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. I sat at my desk, staring at my computer screen without seeing it, trying to figure out how I'd ended up here. I'd worked so hard to get this job. It was my dream position at a company I'd admired for years. Senior marketing manager at 32 years old, managing a team of 3 junior marketers, overseeing campaigns for major clients. It was everything I'd worked toward since graduating college 10 years ago. And now I was failing at it because I was trying to help my dying mother-in-law. That night, I told Marcus everything. He listened while I explained about the meeting with Karen, about the warning, about how my career was hanging by a thread. Quit, he said immediately, without hesitation. What? Quit the job. We can manage on my salary. It'll be tight, but we'll make it work. My mom needs you, Jessica. This is more important than any job. Marcus, this isn't just any job. This is my career. And this is my mother's life. His voice was sharp, angry in a way I'd rarely heard. I'm sorry, Jessica, but there's no comparison here. My mother is dying. She has maybe a year left if we're lucky. Your career will still be there after she's gone. You can go back to work then. But right now, she needs you. I need you to do this. What could I say to that? How could I argue? How could I possibly choose my career over helping my husband's dying mother? I gave my notice the next day. Karen looked disappointed but not surprised. I'm sorry it came to this. You're incredibly talented, Jessica. When things settle down, when your family situation improves, please consider coming back. We'd love to have you. Thank you, I managed to say, but we both knew I wouldn't be coming back. In the marketing world, 3 months made you outdated. A year or more, I'd be starting over from scratch. My last day was a Friday. My team took me out for lunch, said nice things about what a great manager I'd been for the short time we'd worked together. One of them, a young woman named Tara, pulled me aside before we left the restaurant. Can I give you some advice? She asked quietly. Sure. Don't lose yourself in this. I get that you're helping your mother-in-law, and that's admirable, but don't forget about your own life. Don't forget about your own dreams and goals. Caregiving can swallow you whole if you let it. I nodded, but I didn't really hear her. How could I think about my dreams and goals when Patricia was dying? Looking back, Tara saw what I couldn't. She saw the beginning of the end of my identity. Once I wasn't working, Patricia's demands, no, that's not fair, her needs, increased exponentially. It wasn't just the chemotherapy appointments anymore, though those continued every 2 weeks like clockwork. It was everything else. Jessica, I'm too weak to go grocery shopping. Could you pick up a few things for me? Jessica, I can't cook anymore. The smell of food makes me nauseous. Could you make some meals I could freeze? Jessica, I can't clean the house. The cleaning products make me sick, and I don't have the energy anyway. Could you come over and help? Jessica, I'm so lonely, so scared. Could you just come sit with me for a while? Every request was reasonable. Every need was legitimate. How could I say no to a dying woman who just wanted help grocery shopping, a home-cooked meal, a clean house, some company? I couldn't, so I didn't. I went. Every time she called, every time she texted, every time she needed anything, I went. My days developed a rhythm that looked nothing like my life before. I'd wake up, check my phone, usually find a text from Patricia, drive to her house, spend 4 to 8 hours cooking, cleaning, organizing, sitting, drive home, make dinner for Marcus, collapse into bed. Repeat. Marcus was grateful, endlessly, effusively grateful. You're amazing, Jess. Seriously, I don't know what we'd do without you. My mom said you made her that chicken soup she loves. She said it was the first thing she'd been able to eat in 3 days. Thank you for taking her to her appointment. Thank you for being there. Thank you for sacrificing so much. The gratitude should have felt good, should have made me feel valued and appreciated. Instead, it felt like pressure, like obligation, like I was being slowly buried under the weight of their expectations. But I didn't say anything. How could I? Patricia was dying. My inconvenience, my exhaustion, my growing resentment, none of it mattered compared to that. Around the 6th-month mark, I tried to bring up the topic of starting a family. Marcus and I had always planned to have kids. We'd talked about it before we got married, agreed we wanted to start trying within the first year. But that was before cancer, before everything changed. I know the timing isn't ideal, I said carefully one night as we got ready for bed, but we'd talked about starting to try for a baby. I'm 32. If we want more than one kid, we probably should start soon. My fertility is only going to decrease from here. Marcus looked at me like I'd suggested we take a vacation to Mars. You want to have a baby now, while my mother is dying? I just thought we could start trying. It might take months to get pregnant anyway, and…
Jessica, how would that even work? How would we manage a pregnancy and a newborn while you're taking care of my mom full-time? Have you thought about that? I could do both. Women do it all the time. No. His voice was flat, final. No, we're not having this conversation right now. My mother is dying, Jessica. That's what matters. That's the only thing that matters. Everything else, our plans, our timeline, our future, all of that can wait until after she's gone. But what if… I said no. He turned away from me, ending the discussion. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, feeling something inside me crack. Not break, not yet, but crack. A hairline fracture in the foundation of who I was, who I thought I'd be. So we waited. We put our lives on hold. We delayed having children because Patricia was dying. Except Patricia wasn't dying. Not really, not at all. But I wouldn't know that for another 2.5 years. Year 1 became year 2 with barely a pause to acknowledge the milestone. Patricia was still alive, still in treatment, still needing constant care and attention. The doctors are amazed, she told me one day, gripping my hand with surprising strength for someone supposedly ravaged by cancer. They didn't think I'd make it this long. They keep saying I'm a miracle case, that my survival odds were so low, but here I am, still fighting. You're incredibly strong, I said, because what else could I say?
But privately, I was confused. I'd read everything I could about pancreatic cancer. I'd joined online support groups for families dealing with this specific type of cancer, and what I was seeing with Patricia didn't match what I was reading. Pancreatic cancer patients in stage 4 typically declined rapidly. They lost massive amounts of weight. They experienced severe pain. They became bedridden as the cancer spread and organs failed. Patricia had lost some weight, yes, maybe 15 or 20 pounds over the course of a year, but she wasn't skeletal. She wasn't in constant pain. She wasn't bedridden. She was tired, always tired. She complained about nausea. She wore headscarves because her hair had thinned significantly. But she could still move around, still do light activities, still function in a way that seemed inconsistent with terminal stage 4 cancer. I mentioned it to Marcus once, hesitantly, not wanting to give him false hope. Do you think maybe the cancer isn't progressing as fast as they thought? Maybe the treatment is working better than expected? His face did something complicated, hope and fear warring with each other. Don't, he said finally. Don't give me hope. I can't handle thinking she might survive only to have her die anyway. It's better to assume the worst and be grateful for every extra day we get. So I stopped questioning it. Stopped comparing Patricia's symptoms to what I read in medical journals and support group posts. Stopped wondering why a supposedly terminal cancer patient seemed to be maintaining such a stable decline. I just kept showing up, kept cooking and cleaning and driving and sitting, kept sacrificing piece after piece of myself on the altar of Patricia's illness. My friendships deteriorated. I'd canceled plans so many times that people stopped inviting me places. When I did manage to see friends, I was exhausted, distracted, unable to focus on anything except Patricia's latest health update or treatment side effect. You need to take care of yourself, too, my best friend Sophie told me over coffee one rare afternoon when Patricia's sister was visiting and I had a few hours free. You're burning out. I can see it. I'm fine. You're not fine. You look exhausted. When's the last time you did something just for you? Something fun? I couldn't remember. Patricia needs me. And who's taking care of you? Marcus. Marcus is dealing with his own trauma about his dying mother. I'm asking who's taking care of you. I had no answer. Jessica, I love you and I know you're trying to do the right thing, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You need to refill yourself sometimes, or there'll be nothing left to give. I nodded, but I didn't hear her. Not really. How could I think about refilling my cup when Patricia was dying? That conversation with Sophie was one of the last real conversations we had. After that, she slowly drifted away, and I was too tired to chase her. One by one, my friends faded. My professional contacts moved on. My hobbies disappeared. My identity as anything other than Marcus's wife who takes care of his dying mother evaporated. And through it all, Patricia kept not dying. Year 2 became year 3. 3 years since the diagnosis. 3 years of bi-weekly chemotherapy appointments. 3 years of my life consumed by someone else's illness. Patricia's survival, while supposedly miraculous, also seemed to be hardening something in her. Or maybe I was just noticing things I'd overlooked before. She had opinions about everything in our lives, and she wasn't shy about sharing them. Marcus, you should ask for a promotion. Jessica isn't working anymore, so you need to be earning more. How else will you afford a house? How else will you support a family? Jessica, this apartment is too small. It's barely 900 square feet. You should move somewhere bigger, with an actual yard. I need space when I come to visit. I can't be cramped in this tiny place. Have you thought about my funeral? I know it's morbid, but I need to know my wishes will be honored. I want the service at St. Mary's. I want white roses, no other flowers, just white roses. I want Amazing Grace sung by a soprano, definitely not a tenor, and I want to be buried next to Marcus's father in the plot we bought together. Promise me you'll make sure all of that happens. Every conversation circled back to Patricia, her needs, her preferences, her dying wishes that needed to be executed perfectly whenever she finally did die. Which, based on 3 years of evidence, might be never. Marcus catered to her every whim. When she said we needed a bigger place, he started looking at houses we couldn't afford. When she criticized his career progress, he worked longer hours, chasing a promotion that would mean even less time together. When she gave her detailed funeral instructions, he wrote everything down carefully, assuring her that every wish would be honored. I watched my husband transform from the man I'd married into someone I barely recognized, someone so consumed by his mother's impending death that he'd forgotten how to live his own life. And I was right there with him, equally consumed, equally lost. We stopped having sex, not consciously, not as a decision, but gradually. I was always too tired, he was always too stressed. We'd go weeks without touching beyond a peck on the lips when he left for work. We stopped going on dates. Why would we? I was too exhausted to enjoy anything, and Marcus felt guilty having fun while his mother was dying. We stopped talking about the future, our future, separate from Patricia's death. It was like we were in suspended animation, waiting for her to die so we could finally start living again. On our 3rd anniversary, Marcus brought home flowers, grocery store carnations, the kind you buy when you remember at the last minute. "Happy anniversary," he said, handing them to me. "Happy anniversary." We ordered takeout and ate it in front of the TV, barely talking, each lost in our own exhaustion. Later, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and thought, this is not the life I imagined. This is not the marriage I wanted. This is not the person I meant to become. But Patricia was dying, so what did my disappointment matter? The truth revealed itself on a Tuesday, because apparently all life-changing revelations happen on Tuesdays. I was at Patricia's house doing my usual routine, cleaning the kitchen, preparing meals for the week, changing her sheets. Patricia had gone down for her afternoon nap, a regular occurrence after her supposedly exhausting treatments. I was finishing up in the kitchen, wiping down counters, when I realized the trash was overflowing. I tied up the bag and carried it out to the garage where the large bins were kept. As I lifted the lid of the trash bin to toss in the bag, something caught my eye. A familiar letterhead peeking out from under some crumpled papers. Metropolitan Cancer Center. My heart skipped. Medical records in the trash? That seemed careless, potentially even a HIPAA violation if someone found them. What if identity thieves went through her garbage? I shouldn't have looked. I know I shouldn't have. It was an invasion of privacy, a violation of trust. But I looked. I pulled out the paper carefully, smoothing it out. It was a medical record, at least it was supposed to be. Patricia's name at the top, the Metropolitan Cancer Center letterhead, a date from last week. But something was wrong. The paper was regular printer paper, the kind you'd buy at any office supply store, not the thick, watermarked paper that real medical documents came on, the kind I'd seen on my own medical records from various doctors over the years. My hands started shaking. I set down the trash bag and dug deeper into the bin, pulling out more papers, more medical records, more documents bearing the Metropolitan Cancer Center letterhead, all of them on regular printer paper, all of them with slight formatting inconsistencies, fonts that didn't quite match, margins that were slightly off, spacing that varied from document to document. They were fake. They were all fake. I stood in Patricia's garage surrounded by 3 years' worth of lies printed on cheap paper and discarded like trash, and felt my entire reality crack open. The diagnosis letter from 3 years ago, the treatment plans, the lab results showing cancer progression, the doctor's notes about her declining condition, All of it fake, all of it forgeries. My mother-in-law didn't have cancer. She'd never had cancer. Every chemotherapy appointment, every treatment update, every tear-filled conversation about mortality, all of it had been a performance. She'd been lying to us for 3 years. I don't remember walking back into the house, don't remember getting in my car, don't remember the drive home. But somehow I ended up sitting at our kitchen table, surrounded by the evidence I'd carefully gathered from Patricia's trash, staring at the proof of her deception and trying to understand what it meant. What kind of person fakes terminal cancer? What kind of monster lies about dying for 3 years? What kind of mother does that to her own son? I was still sitting there, surrounded by fake medical records, when Marcus came home from work 2 hours later. "Hey, babe, you're home early. How was Mom?" He stopped, seeing my face. "What's wrong? Is she okay? Did something happen?" "Sit down," I said. My voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from very far away. "Jessica, you're scaring me. What—" "Sit down, Marcus." He sat, his face pale with worry. "What happened? Is my mom—" "Your mother doesn't have cancer," I said flatly. "She never had cancer. She's been lying to us for 3 years." The words seemed to hang in the air, impossible and true at the same time. "What are you talking about?" I pushed the papers across the table. "I found these in her trash. Look at them. Really look at them." Marcus picked up the first document, a recent treatment summary, supposedly from last month. He stared at it, confused. "I don't understand. What am I looking at?" "Look at the paper. Feel it. It's regular printer paper, not medical record paper. Look at the formatting. The fonts don't match from document to document. Look at the signatures, Marcus. They're slightly different every time because she's forging them herself." "No, no, you're wrong. These must be copies she printed from the patient portal." "Then why are they in her trash? And why would she need to print copies from the portal when the hospital sends official records?" I pulled out another document. "Look at this one. It's dated 3 weeks ago, but your mom's last appointment was 2 weeks ago. I know because I took her." Marcus was shaking his head, denial written all over his face. "There has to be an explanation. Maybe she made a mistake. Maybe—" "Look at the doctor's signature, Marcus." I laid out 3 different documents side by side. Dr. Richardson's signature is different on each one. Not slightly different, like natural variation, completely different. Different handwriting styles. Because your mother is forging them herself and can't replicate the same signature consistently. He stared at the documents, and I watched the truth slowly penetrate the wall of denial he'd built. She wouldn't. She couldn't. Why would she do this? I don't know, but Marcus, I found dozens of these in her trash, years of fake medical records. None of it is real. His hands were shaking as he picked up document after document, examining each one with growing horror. The chemotherapy, the appointments, all those times you took her. I don't know where she went for 4 hours while I waited in the parking lot, but she wasn't getting chemotherapy. There is no chemotherapy. There is no cancer. Marcus's face went through a journey, confusion melting into realization, realization hardening into rage, rage cracking open into devastation. 3 years, he said, his voice breaking. 3 years of thinking she was dying, of preparing myself to lose her, of grieving her while she was still alive, and it was all fake? All of it? "I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" He laughed, a harsh, broken sound. "Jessica, you should be furious. You should be the angriest person in this room. You gave up your job, your career, your plans for having children. You sacrificed everything to take care of her, and she wasn't even sick." I am furious, I said quietly. I'm so angry I can barely think straight. But Marcus, I'm also heartbroken for you. She's your mother. This betrayal is unforgivable. His voice was flat, dead. There's no coming back from this. There's no excuse that could possibly make this okay. He stood up abruptly, pacing the small kitchen like a caged animal. I need to confront her right now. I need to hear her admit it. Okay, I'll come with you. No. He stopped, turned to face me. Actually, yes. Yes, you should be there. You deserve to hear whatever pathetic explanation she tries to give. We drove to Patricia's house in silence. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that felt obscenely beautiful given what we were about to do. Marcus's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel. When we pulled into her driveway, I saw her peeking through the curtains. She knew something was wrong. We never showed up unannounced like this. Marcus didn't knock. He used his key, pushing the door open hard enough that it bounced off the wall. What a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting. Where are you going for 4 hours every other Tuesday? Marcus interrupted, his voice cold. Patricia blinked, confusion crossing her face. Or maybe it was calculated confusion. What do you mean? I'm going to chemotherapy, you know that. No, you're not. I stepped forward, pulling the crumpled documents from my purse. Because you don't have cancer. You never had cancer. These are fake medical records that I found in your trash. The color drained from Patricia's face. For a long moment, she just stared at the papers in my hand, her mouth opening and closing without sound. Where did you get those? I told you, your trash, along with about 50 other forged documents, all printed on regular printer paper, all with inconsistent formatting and forged signatures. You went through my trash? Her voice rose, taking on an edge of indignation. You invaded my privacy? You violated my trust? Your trust? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You've been lying to us for 3 years. How dare you go through my personal belongings? How dare you? Mom, Marcus's voice cut through her outrage like a knife. Stop. Just stop. We know. We have the evidence. There's no point in denying it anymore. Patricia's face crumpled, but I couldn't tell if it was genuine emotion or another performance. She'd been acting for 3 years. How could we ever believe anything she showed us again? Sit down, Marcus commanded. Sit down and tell us the truth. All of it. Why did you do this? Patricia sat slowly on her pristine white couch, the one no one was usually allowed to sit on. Her hands twisted in her lap, and for a moment she looked small and old and pathetic. Then she started to laugh. Not a nervous laugh, not an embarrassed, caught in a lie laugh. A bitter, angry laugh that sent chills down my spine. You want the truth? She said, her voice dripping with venom. Fine, here's the truth. You stole my son from me, Jessica. You married him and took him away from me, and I was left with nothing. What are you talking about? Marcus stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. I didn't abandon you. I got married. That's what adults do. That's normal. Normal? Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. You used to call me every single day. Every day, Marcus. We'd talk for an hour. You'd tell me about your work, your friends, your life. You'd come over for dinner 3 times a week. We'd watch our shows together. You were my whole world. I was your son, not your husband. And then she came along. Patricia pointed at me with a shaking finger, her face twisted with hatred. And suddenly you were too busy for your mother. You'd call once a week if I was lucky. You'd come over once a month. You had a new life, and I wasn't part of it anymore. Because I was building a life with my wife. That's what marriage means. It means abandonment.
Patricia was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. It means I raised you alone for 20 years after your father died. 20 years of sacrificing everything for you. And my reward? Getting cast aside the moment you found someone you wanted more. I didn't cast you aside, Marcus said, but his voice wavered. Mom, I still saw you. I still called. I still cared about you. Not enough. It was never enough. And then you got married, and I knew I was going to lose you completely. You'd have kids, and then you'd really have no time for me. I'd become the grandmother who sees her grandchildren twice a year. The burden, the obligation. I couldn't let that happen. So you faked cancer. I said it flatly, still unable to fully process the magnitude of her deception. You faked terminal cancer to keep him close to you? I did what I had to do. Patricia stood up, her frailty disappearing as rage animated her. And it worked, didn't it? Suddenly, Marcus was calling me every day again. Suddenly, I was important. Suddenly, I mattered. You mattered before. I loved you before. You didn't need to fake dying to get my attention. Yes, I did, because the attention I was getting wasn't enough. I needed to be your priority again, not an afterthought, not something you fit in when convenient. So you destroyed Jessica's life? Marcus gestured at me wildly. She gave up her career for you, her plans for children, 3 years of her life, and you didn't care because all that mattered was getting what you wanted? Patricia turned to look at me, and her expression was chilling, not apologetic, not remorseful, but resentful. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle, but Jessica, be honest, weren't you happy to quit that job? Weren't you overwhelmed, struggling to keep up? I gave you an excuse to stop, and you took it. I loved that job, I said, my voice shaking with fury. It was my dream career, and I gave it up because I thought I was helping someone die with dignity. But you're not dying. You're just selfish. Selfish? I'm selfish? Patricia laughed bitterly. You married my son after dating him for less than 2 years? You barely knew him. You barely knew me. And suddenly you're the most important person in his life? That's not selfish? That's marriage, I shouted. That's how marriage works. Your spouse becomes your priority. But that doesn't mean you stop loving your parents or caring about them. Marcus never abandoned you. You just couldn't accept that you weren't the center of his universe anymore. Because I should be. I'm his mother. I raised him. I sacrificed everything for him. I deserve his loyalty. You deserve his love, I said, but you don't own him, and you definitely don't have the right to fake terminal cancer to manipulate him into giving you what you want. Patricia's face twisted into something ugly. Oh, spare me the moral superiority. You're only upset because your plans got derailed. Well, Jessica, welcome to motherhood. Sacrifice and derailed plans. I just gave you a preview. That's not motherhood, Marcus said, his voice breaking. That's abuse. That's manipulation. That's betrayal. Mom, what you did, there's no justifying it. There's no explaining it away. You let me believe you were dying for 3 years. Do you have any idea what that did to me? What it did to us? It kept you in my life. It made you remember that I exist. I never forgot you existed, but you've made sure I can never forget this. How am I supposed to move past this? How am I supposed to ever trust you again? You don't have to trust me. You just have to love me. I'm your mother. That doesn't change. No, Marcus said quietly. It does change. Everything changes. The mother I thought I knew, the one I would have done anything for, the one I grieved for even while she was alive, that person doesn't exist. You're someone else, someone I don't recognize, someone I don't think I can forgive. You don't mean that. Yes, I do. Mom, what you did, it's unforgivable. You didn't just lie to me, you stole 3 years from Jessica. You made me complicit in ruining her life. You turned me into someone who chose your fake illness over my wife's real career, over our plans to have children, over everything that actually mattered. Patricia's face was red, tears streaming, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just another performance. If you walk out that door, if you abandon me now, you'll regret it. I'm still your mother. I still raised you. You owe me. I don't owe you this. I don't owe you my entire life. And I definitely don't owe you forgiveness for what you've done. He turned to me. Let's go. We're done here. We walked out of Patricia's house, out of her perfectly decorated, pristinely maintained mausoleum of narcissism, and I knew we were walking out of her life entirely. Behind us, we could hear her screaming, "You're abandoning me after everything I've done for you. Marcus, you can't do this. Marcus!" But we could, and we did. The next 3 weeks were surreal. Patricia called Marcus's phone approximately 200 times. He didn't answer once. She left voicemails that ran the emotional gamut from apologetic to furious to desperate. "Marcus, please call me back. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Let's talk about this." You can't just abandon your mother over one little misunderstanding. I raised you better than this. I'm having chest pains, real ones this time, I swear. If something happens to me and you didn't answer, you'll never forgive yourself. Fine, don't call me back. See if I care. I don't need you anyway. I've done fine without you for 3 years. Oh wait, no I haven't, because you've been here the whole time because of my supposed cancer. Well, congratulations, you figured it out. Happy now? After 2 weeks of relentless calls, Marcus changed his number. He sent her one text from the new number before blocking her. "Do not contact me or Jessica again. If you do, we will pursue legal action for harassment." Her response came via certified letter delivered to our apartment. She was suing us for emotional distress and elder abandonment. "She's claiming we abandoned her in her time of need," our lawyer explained when we consulted him, "that you made promises to care for her, then cut off all contact, causing her severe emotional and psychological trauma." "She faked cancer," I said, still stunned that we were even having this conversation. "For 3 years. We have the forged documents." "Those will definitely help your case, but I'll be honest, this is going to get ugly. Family court always does, but this level of deception and counter-accusation is unusual even for family law. Are you prepared for this to get very public, very messy?" Marcus looked at me. I looked at him. We'd already lost 3 years. What was a few more months if it meant finally being free of Patricia's manipulation? "Do it," Marcus said. "File whatever we need to file, present whatever evidence we have. I want this on record. I want people to know what she did." The court case took 6 months to resolve. During that time, Patricia tried everything. She showed up at Marcus's office claiming to be having a medical emergency. Security escorted her out. She sent letters to our apartment. We returned them unopened. She even tried to contact my mother, telling my mother that Marcus was abusive and brainwashed me into abandoning her. My mother called me worried. "Jessica, honey, Marcus's mother called me. She said some very concerning things." "She faked cancer, Mom, for 3 years, made me quit my job to take care of her. She's been lying about everything." Silence on the other end. Then, "Oh, honey, oh my God, I'm so sorry." "She's trying to manipulate everyone who knows us. Don't believe anything she says." "I won't. Do you need anything?"
Money, support, someone to testify on your behalf? Maybe all three. In the end, the court case was almost anticlimactic. Our lawyer presented the forged documents, testimony from the Metropolitan Cancer Center confirming Patricia had never been a patient there, bank records showing no payments for chemotherapy treatments that supposedly cost tens of thousands of dollars, testimony from me about the 3 years of caregiving, the job I'd quit, the career I'd lost. Patricia's lawyer tried to argue that she'd been receiving treatment at a different facility, that the documents were real but from somewhere else, that we were the ones lying. But when the judge asked Patricia directly, "Where were you receiving treatment? What was the name of the facility? Who was your oncologist?" she couldn't answer. She stumbled, claimed she didn't remember, said the trauma had caused her to block out the details. The judge wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Morrison, I've reviewed the evidence presented by your son and daughter-in-law. These documents are clearly forged. I can see the inconsistencies myself. The Cancer Center has confirmed you were never a patient there. You have no medical records from any other facility. The only logical conclusion is that you fabricated this illness." Patricia started crying. "I was lonely. I just wanted my son in my life. Is that so wrong?" "Faking terminal cancer to manipulate your son is absolutely wrong," the judge said, her voice sharp. "Mrs. Morrison, your lawsuit is dismissed. Furthermore, I'm granting the restraining order requested by your son and daughter-in-law. You are not to contact them in any way, directly or indirectly, for a minimum of 2 years. If you violate this order, you will face criminal charges. Do you understand? You can't keep me from my son." "I just did. Mrs. Morrison, I strongly suggest you seek professional help. What you've done indicates serious psychological issues that need to be addressed. Court is adjourned." We left the courthouse feeling empty. Not triumphant, not relieved, just empty. "It's over," Marcus said in the parking lot. "Is it?" "The legal stuff is over. The rest," he trailed off, because what else was there to say? The damage was done. 3 years of our lives, gone. His relationship with his mother, destroyed. My career, derailed. Our plans for children, delayed to the point where I was now 35 and facing the reality of advanced maternal age and declining fertility. We'd won the court case, but we'd lost so much more. The months after the court case were dedicated to healing, or trying to. Marcus went to therapy twice a week, individual sessions to process the betrayal, trauma, and grief. "I'm grieving someone who's still alive," he told me after one session. "My therapist says that's complicated grief. The mother I thought I had, the one I loved, the one I would have done anything for. That person was an illusion. She never existed. The real Patricia is someone who was capable of this level of deception, and I don't know how to reconcile those two versions." "You don't have to reconcile them," I said. "You can grieve the mother you thought you had, while accepting that the real one is someone different, someone you don't want in your life. Do you think I'm a terrible person for cutting her out completely? No, I think you're protecting yourself and protecting us. She's proven she'll do anything to manipulate and control you. Staying in contact would just give her more opportunities." We also did couples therapy, trying to rebuild what 3 years of stress and lies had fractured. Our therapist, Dr. Chen, was direct in a way I appreciated. "Your marriage has been in survival mode for 3 years," she said in our first session. "You've been functioning as caregivers and crisis managers, not as partners. Now you need to figure out who you are together outside of that role." "How do we do that?" I asked. "You start by making space for joy again, for fun, for intimacy, for all the things that got pushed aside when Patricia's supposed illness became your entire focus." It was harder than it sounded. We'd forgotten how to be playful with each other, how to laugh together, how to be intimate without the weight of stress and exhaustion crushing us. But slowly, incrementally, we found our way back. Marcus started coming home earlier, making time for actual dates instead of just collapsing in front of the TV. I started pursuing hobbies again. I joined a book club, took a pottery class, reconnected with Sophie and other friends I'd neglected. I missed you, Sophie said, when we met for coffee for the first time in over a year. I'm sorry I wasn't more persistent about staying in touch. I should have tried harder. You tried. I was the one who was too exhausted and consumed to respond. And honestly, Sophie, I don't blame anyone for drifting away. I wouldn't have wanted to be around me either during that time. Still, I should have been there for you. You're here now. That's what matters. Rebuilding my career was harder. The 3-year gap in my resume was a red flag to every employer I applied to. I tried being vague, family caregiving responsibilities. But in interviews, people always pressed for details. What kind of caregiving? For how long? Are those responsibilities ongoing? I developed a script. I was caring for a family member who I believed had terminal cancer. It turned out the illness was fabricated. I'm now free to work full-time without restrictions. Some interviewers were sympathetic. Others were clearly skeptical, like they thought I was lying about the situation. One interviewer actually said, "That's quite a story. Do you have documentation?" Sure. Documentation that someone faked cancer? Sure. I have court records if you'd like to see them. He didn't ask again. Eventually, after 4 months of searching, I got a job. Not in marketing. I'd been out too long to jump back in at the senior level where I'd left off. Instead, I took a position as a marketing coordinator at a small nonprofit. It was entry-level work I'd done 10 years ago, for a salary that was $30,000 less than I'd been making before. But it was a job. It was a start. My first day, my new boss, Rachel, sat down with me. "I read about your situation. The court case was in the news." My stomach dropped. "Oh, I want you to know I hired you because you're qualified and capable, not because I felt sorry for you. But I also want you to know that I get it. My mother has borderline personality disorder. I've dealt with parental manipulation my entire life. So if you ever need to talk, or if you're having a rough day processing everything, my door is open." I almost cried right there in her office. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The baby question was the hardest thing to address. I was now 35, officially of advanced maternal age in medical terms. Marcus was 37. We'd always wanted kids, but 3 years of Patricia's deception had stolen our ideal timeline. "Do you still want to try?" Marcus asked one night, lying in bed in the dark. "I'd understand if you didn't. If you want to focus on your career, rebuild what you lost." "I want a baby," I interrupted. "I've wanted a baby since before we got married. But Marcus, I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of everything. Of fertility issues at my age, of pregnancy complications, of being a parent when we're both still healing from trauma, of your mother somehow finding out and trying to insert herself into our child's life." "She won't," Marcus said firmly. "We have a restraining order, and even after it expires, we're never letting her back in. Our child will never meet her. They'll never be exposed to her manipulation." "But what if—" "What if nothing? Jessica, she made us waste 3 years. I won't let her steal any more of our future. If we want kids, let's have kids. Let's not give her any more power over our choices." He was right. We'd already sacrificed enough to Patricia's lies. We wouldn't sacrifice this, too. We started trying immediately. I'd read all the statistics about fertility after 35, prepared myself for it to take months or even years. I'd researched fertility specialists, made appointments for both of us to get tested. But 2 months later, I was staring at a positive pregnancy test in our tiny bathroom, crying with a mixture of joy and terror. "Marcus," I called out, my voice shaking, Marcus, come here. He appeared in the doorway, saw the test in my hand, saw my face. Is that? I'm pregnant. He crossed the bathroom in one stride, pulling me into his arms. We stood there crying together, holding each other in the cramped space where our toilet didn't quite flush properly and the tile was cracked in 3 places. It wasn't the joyful, celebratory moment I'd always imagined. It was messy and complicated and tinged with grief for everything we'd lost. But it was also hopeful. It was ours. It was the beginning of something Patricia couldn't touch. The pregnancy was difficult, both physically and emotionally. Morning sickness lasted well into the second trimester. I was exhausted constantly, which triggered memories of the exhaustion I'd felt during the 3 years of caring for Patricia. I had to constantly remind myself, this exhaustion is different. This is for my baby, not for someone else's lies. At 20 weeks, we found out we were having a girl. Marcus cried when the ultrasound technician told us. A daughter, he whispered, holding my hand while we watched her move on the screen. We're having a daughter. Are you okay? I asked later in the car. I know this brings up complicated feelings about your mom. I'm terrified, he admitted. I'm terrified of repeating her patterns, of being controlling or manipulative, of putting too much emotional responsibility on our daughter. You won't. You're nothing like her. How do you know? Because you're already worried about it, because you're self-aware enough to see the potential pitfalls. Patricia wasn't. She genuinely believed she was entitled to everything she demanded. You know better. We chose the name together, Sophie Rebecca. Sophie after my best friend who'd stuck by me even when I'd been too consumed to be a good friend back. Rebecca after Marcus's grandmother, the one person in his family he remembers as truly kind and selfless. Sophie Rebecca Morrison, our daughter, our future, the life we'd fought so hard to reclaim. Throughout the pregnancy, I lived in low-level fear that Patricia would somehow find out, that she'd show up at the hospital, that she'd try to claim her role as grandmother despite everything she'd done. But she didn't. The restraining order held. We heard nothing from her for the entire 9 months. Sophie was born on a cold morning in February after 18 hours of labor that felt like it might never end. When they finally placed her in my arms, tiny and red and screaming with outrage at being evicted from the womb, I felt something inside me settle. This was what we'd been waiting for. This was the future Patricia had tried to steal. Marcus held her and cried. Hi, Sophie. Hi, baby girl. We've been waiting so long to meet you. Should we take a picture? I asked. Send it to family? Yeah, but Jessica, I don't want anyone posting it on social media. I don't want any chance of my mother finding out through mutual friends or family members. Agreed. No social media, just private messages to people we trust. We sent photos to my parents, my siblings, Marcus's aunt and uncle, a handful of close friends. Each message came with explicit instructions. Please don't post on social media. We're keeping this private. Everyone understood, or at least everyone said they did. 3 days after Sophie was born, while I was still recovering in the hospital, I got a text from my college friend, Jennifer. Congratulations on the baby! Saw the announcement on your cousin Melissa's Facebook. She's beautiful. My stomach dropped. I immediately opened Facebook and searched for Melissa's page. There it was, a photo of Sophie, one of the ones we'd sent to my parents, with the caption, "Welcome to the world, baby Sophie. So proud of my cousin Emma and her husband Marcus. This little angel is going to be so loved." The post had 63 likes and 27 comments, and somewhere in those comments or likes could be Patricia's friends, Patricia's family members, people who would tell her. Marcus, I said, my voice shaking, Melissa posted Sophie's photo on Facebook. He looked up from his phone, where he'd been texting work to tell them he'd be on paternity leave. What? I showed him. His face went pale. We specifically said no social media. We told everyone. I know, but Melissa has never been good at following instructions. Marcus was already calling my parents. Hi, Susan. Yeah, we're good. Listen, Melissa posted Sophie's photo on Facebook. Can you please ask her to take it down? We don't want Patricia to find out. No, I know Melissa probably didn't mean any harm, but yes, please, as soon as possible. Thank you. He hung up. Your mom is calling Melissa now. What if Patricia already saw it? Then we deal with it. But Emma, we have a restraining order. She legally cannot contact us or come near us. Even if she knows about Sophie, she can't do anything. He was right. Logically, rationally, he was right. But I was a brand new mother, hormones flooding my system, protective instincts in overdrive. The idea of Patricia knowing about Sophie, seeing her photo, made my skin crawl. Melissa called 10 minutes later, apologetic and defensive in equal measure. I didn't think it was a big deal. It's just Facebook. And she's my cousin's baby. Why shouldn't I be allowed to share that I'm excited? Because we specifically asked everyone not to post on social media, I said, trying to keep my voice level. We have a very good reason for keeping Sophie's birth private. Well, nobody told me the reason. If I'd known it was some kind of witness protection situation, I would have been more careful. It's not witness protection, Melissa. It's complicated family stuff that I shouldn't have to explain. Did you take the post down? Yes, fine, but I don't think you're being fair. I was just excited for you. She hung up before I could respond. Witness protection situation, Marcus repeated, shaking his head. She has no idea. Should we have told people why? Should we have explained about your mom? No, that's not anyone's business. People should respect boundaries without needing the entire backstory. He was right, again, but letting go of that fear was harder than it should have been. The first 2 weeks of Sophie's life, I barely slept, partly because newborns don't sleep, partly because every unexpected noise, every car that parked too long outside our building, every knock on a neighbor's door made me jump. I was waiting for Patricia to show up. She didn't. Weeks became months, months became a year. Sophie's first birthday came and went with no contact from Patricia. Maybe she really has given up, Marcus said one night after Sophie was asleep. Maybe she's finally accepted that we're not letting her back in. Or maybe she's planning something big, building up to some grand gesture. Emma, you can't live in fear of her forever. She's one person. She has no power over us except what we give her. He was right, again, but letting go of that fear was harder than it should have been. Sophie was 2 when we finally felt safe enough to start posting photos of her on social media. Even then, we kept our privacy settings tight, our friend lists curated. Patricia wasn't on any social media we knew of, but we weren't taking chances. Sophie was 3 when the pandemic hit and the world shut down. We were grateful we'd already been living separately from Patricia. We couldn't imagine navigating COVID while also managing her boundary violations. Sophie was 4 when we bought our first house. A real house with a yard and a garage and a second bedroom for the sibling we were planning. Sophie was 5 when we got pregnant again, a boy this time, named Daniel after my father. And through all of it, through every milestone and moment, Patricia was absent, by choice. Her choice to refuse our boundaries, our choice to protect our family. Sometimes Marcus would get quiet, staring at Sophie or later at both kids, and I knew he was thinking about his mother, about the grandmother she could have been if she'd just been willing to respect basic boundaries, about the relationship they could have had if she'd chosen differently. Do you regret it? I asked him once, cutting her out completely. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that she's the kind of person who made it necessary. But no, I don't regret protecting you and the kids.
That's my job. That's what fathers do. You're a good father. I'm trying to be better than what I had. And he was. Marcus was present, engaged, emotionally available in ways his own parents had never been. He went to therapy regularly, worked through his childhood trauma, actively chose to parent differently. Patricia had lost everything because she couldn't let go of control. Meanwhile, Marcus had built a beautiful life by learning to trust, to set boundaries, to choose health over dysfunction. Sophie was 7 when we got the call from Marcus's brother David. She's in the hospital, stroke. The doctors aren't sure if she'll make it. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then, okay, thanks for telling me. Are you going to come to the hospital? I don't know. I need to think about it. After he hung up, Marcus and I sat at the kitchen table while Sophie and Daniel watched cartoons in the other room, oblivious to the weight of the moment. What do you want to do? I asked him. Part of me feels like I should go. She's my mother. She's dying. Maybe this is my last chance for closure. But the other part? What? The other part knows she hasn't changed. She's had 7 years to apologize, to respect boundaries, to try to build a healthy relationship. She chose not to. A deathbed doesn't erase that. You're allowed to go if you need to. You're also allowed not to. What would you do? I don't know. I've never been in this position. Emma, be honest. Do you think I'll regret it if I don't go? I thought about it carefully. I think you might wonder what if, but I also think you've been wondering what if for 7 years. What if she'd apologized? What if she'd respected our boundaries? What if she'd chosen to be part of Sophie and Daniel's lives in a healthy way? And she's had 7 years to answer those what ifs, and she chose not to. Marcus nodded slowly. I'm not going. Are you sure? Yes. My closure doesn't require me to sit by her hospital bed pretending the last 7 years didn't happen. My closure comes from the life I've built without her, from being the kind of father I wish I'd had, from raising kids who'll never know what it feels like to have a parent who manipulates and controls. Okay, then we'll stay home. David called back 3 times that evening, each time more insistent that Marcus needed to come to the hospital. She's your mother, and I'm her son who she refused to respect. She's dying. I know, and I'm sorry she's suffering, but me being there won't change anything. You're being selfish. Maybe, or maybe I'm being self-protective. Either way, it's my choice. Patricia died 2 days later. Marcus didn't attend the funeral. We did send flowers, white roses, the ones Patricia had said she wanted at her funeral all those years ago when she was pretending to die from cancer. Marcus attached a card that said simply, "I hope you find peace now that you couldn't find in life." David sent a long, angry email about how Marcus had dishonored their mother's memory, how he'd failed as a son, how he'd never be forgiven for his cruelty. Marcus read it once, then deleted it. I don't need forgiveness from someone who enabled her behavior for decades. I need peace, and I have that. A month after Patricia's death, we received a package from the estate lawyer. Patricia had left Marcus a letter to be delivered after her death. Marcus held it for a long time before opening it, turning the envelope over and over in his hands. Do you want me to read it first? Screen it for you? No. I need to do this. He opened it carefully, pulled out several handwritten pages. I watched his face as he read, watched emotions flicker across it like clouds crossing the sun. Anger, sadness, something that might have been grief. When he finished, he handed it to me silently. The letter was vintage Patricia, part apology, part justification, part guilt trip. My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I suppose that means I've run out of time to fix what broke between us. I've spent these last 7 years trying to understand where things went wrong, replaying conversations, analyzing decisions, wondering what I could have done differently. Here's what I've realized. I loved you too much. That sounds strange, I know. How can a mother love her son too much? But I did. After your father became unable to really be a partner to me, you became my entire world, my reason for getting up in the morning, my source of joy and purpose. When you got married, I felt like I was losing you, like Jessica was taking you from me, and I panicked. I acted out in ways I'm not proud of. The cancer lie was wrong, I know that now. It was cruel to make you believe I was dying when I wasn't. But Marcus, I was desperate. I couldn't figure out any other way to keep you in my life. You wanted me to apologize for loving you. You wanted me to apologize for needing you. But how do I apologize for feelings I couldn't control? I know you think I should have respected your boundaries, but your boundaries felt like walls designed to keep me out. They felt like rejection. They felt like you'd chosen Jessica over me. Maybe I should have been different. Maybe I should have been the kind of mother who could let go gracefully. But I wasn't. I couldn't. And I've paid the price. 7 years without my son, without my grandchildren, alone except for David, who stayed out of obligation rather than love. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. But I want you to know I loved you. Everything I did, misguided as it was, came from a place of desperate love. I hope you've built a good life. I hope Jessica makes you happy. I hope Sophie and Daniel, yes, I knew their names, David told me everything I asked about, grow up healthy and loved. And I hope someday you can remember me as more than the mother who failed you. I hope you can remember the good times too. I love you, Marcus. I always have. I always will. Mom. I finished reading and looked up at Marcus. He was crying silently, tears streaming down his face. She still doesn't get it, he said. Even at the end, even knowing she was dying, she still doesn't understand that loving someone doesn't give you the right to control them.
I know. She says she loved me too much, but it wasn't too much love, it was the wrong kind of love. Love is supposed to want what's best for the other person, even when it hurts you. She wanted what was best for her and disguised it as love. You're right. And the cancer lie, she says it was wrong, but then she justifies it immediately. I was desperate. That's not an apology, that's an excuse. I know. He crumpled the letter in his fist. I'm angry. I'm so angry because part of me hoped that at the end, facing death for real this time, she'd finally understand. She'd finally see what she'd done. But she didn't. She died believing she was the victim, that we abandoned her rather than her driving us away. I'm sorry. I don't want to be angry at a dead woman, but I am. I'm furious because she had 7 years to make this right, and she spent every single one of them being stubborn and bitter instead. Then be angry. You're allowed. Marcus cried for a long time that night, cried for the mother he'd wanted and never had, cried for the relationship that could have been if she'd just chosen differently, cried for the wasted years and the lost possibilities. But in the morning, he got up, kissed Sophie and Daniel goodbye as they headed off to school, and went to his therapy appointment. And slowly, day by day, he let the anger go, not because Patricia deserved forgiveness, but because he deserved peace. 5 years after Patricia's death, Sophie asked to see a picture of her. I know Grandma Diane was complicated, she said carefully, using the word we'd taught her. But she was still my grandma, right? Can I see what she looked like? Marcus and I looked at each other. We'd known this day would come eventually. Yes, Marcus said. She was your grandmother, and you have the right to know about her. He pulled up old photos on his phone, photos from before the wedding, before everything went wrong. Patricia smiling at Marcus's law school graduation, Patricia hugging teenage Marcus on his birthday, Patricia looking young and happy at her own wedding to Marcus's father. She was pretty, Sophie said. She was. Why was she complicated? Marcus took a deep breath. She loved me, but she loved me in a way that was hard for me to be around. She wanted to control my life instead of just being part of it. And when I set boundaries, rules about how I needed to be treated, she couldn't respect them. So I had to make the hard choice to not have her in my life. That must have been really sad. It was. It still is sometimes. But Sophie, I want you to know something. If someone treats you in a way that hurts you, even if they love you, even if they're family, you're allowed to protect yourself. Love doesn't mean accepting treatment that makes you feel bad. Even from grandmas? Even from grandmas. Sophie studied the photos for a long time. I think I would have liked to meet her, the version of her that wasn't complicated. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Today, 10 years after Patricia's death, 12 years after we cut contact, 15 years after the fake cancer diagnosis, Marcus is at peace. Our kids are teenagers now. Sophie is 17, Daniel is 12. They know the basics of what happened with their grandmother, age-appropriately filtered. They know she struggled with boundaries. They know their dad made the hard choice to protect his family. And they've learned from it. Sophie especially has absorbed the lesson about healthy relationships and boundaries. She has no tolerance for manipulation from friends, from boys she dates, from anyone. I watched what Grandma Diane did to you, she told Marcus once. I'm never letting anyone treat me that way, and I'm never treating anyone that way either. That's Patricia's legacy, not the manipulation and control she intended, but the negative example that taught her grandchildren exactly what not to do. Marcus still goes to therapy, probably always will. The wounds from his childhood and his relationship with Patricia run deep, and healing is ongoing. But he's built something beautiful from the ruins, a marriage based on mutual respect and honest communication, children who feel safe expressing their needs and emotions, a life free from the constant stress of managing his mother's dysfunction. Sometimes I think about that day 15 years ago when I found the fake medical records in Patricia's trash. The moment everything changed. Would I have been better off never knowing? Living in ignorance while continuing to sacrifice my career and my life for a woman who was never sick at all? No. The truth, however painful, was necessary. It freed us to build something real. Patricia faked terminal cancer for 3 years to control Marcus's life, and in doing so, she lost him completely. Not because of the lie itself, but because she couldn't admit she was wrong when confronted with evidence. She could have apologized. She could have gotten help. She could have respected our boundaries and rebuilt trust slowly over time. Instead, she chose pride over relationship, control over connection, being right over being in our lives. And she died alone, estranged from her son and grandchildren, having never met Sophie or Daniel, having sacrificed everything that actually mattered on the altar of her own ego. That's the saddest part of all. Not that she lied. People make mistakes, even terrible ones. But that when given multiple chances to make it right, she chose herself every single time. Marcus and I have been married now for 18 years. 18 years of building a life free from manipulation. 18 years of teaching our children what healthy love looks like. 18 years of choosing each other and our family over dysfunction. Patricia tried to control Marcus forever by faking cancer. Instead, she lost him entirely, and we built something she could never touch, a family based on honesty, respect, and real love. Not the possessive, controlling thing Patricia called love, but actual love. The kind that gives freedom instead of demanding control. The kind that respects boundaries instead of violating them. The kind that heals instead of wounds. That's our victory. And it's enough.